Lisa Schmidt.
Please.
My screen.
Welcome and good morning. I'm Katie Cartman, the Director of Religious Education here at Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church in Houston, Texas. Our beloved community of faith, reason, and affection welcomes all to grow in mind and spirit as together we build a better world. If you are joining with us for the first time this morning, we extend a special welcome and invite you to fill out our online visitor card so you can receive more information about Emerson and our activities. Again, welcome to all. Today, we've got a special treat, a service from the Reverend Erin Walter, who we met earlier the year. Reverend Erin J. Walter, pronounced she, her, hers, is a minister, activist, and musician based in Austin, and the winner of the 2017 Sermon Award from the Unitarian Universalist Women's Foundation. A former YMCA director, Reverend Erin is the singer-songwriter for band Parker Woodland, whose music you'll hear in this service. She serves as a board member of the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry and is an affiliated community minister of Wildflower UU Church in Austin. You can find more about her music ministry at parkerwoodland.com. Also taking part in this service are worship team lead Bill Hammonds, our music director Julia Morsher, and me, and Emersonian Jill Rose on the tech deck. You'll notice that we've muted you. This helps all of us to hear the service better, and we encourage you to use the chat box. Following the worship service, we'll have coffee hour time, a chance for you to gather in smaller groups to discuss the service and what's going on in your lives. Let's start things off with some gathering music from Parker Woodland. This one's called Later Than We Think. And Julia, I need you to start the slideshow.
I cried when you left, not just because of you, but because I don't know what to do by myself. And I lay in our bed, just close my eyes, let you live on in my head, and I'll play dead. And while I'm here hiding out, I think of all the things I should have said. And while I'm here hiding out, yeah, I hear your voice inside my head. You said it's later than we think, but it's never too late to love yourself. You said it's later than we think, but it's never too late to love yourself. Part of me died when you left. What else could I do? I never dreamed that I'd be here by myself. So I stay in our bed. Better to hide here, let you live on in my head while I play dead. And while I'm here hiding out, I think of all the things I regret. And while I'm here hiding out, I swear I hear your voice inside of my head. You think, so love yourself. It's later than we think. It's later than we think, so love yourself. Oh, whoa, whoa, oh, whoa. Oh, whoa, whoa. I remember you said, it's later than we think, so love yourself. Those were the last words you said, so I remember them. I love myself. I promise, yeah, I promise that I love myself. It was the last gift you gave, so I won't give it away. I love myself.
Sorry, everyone, I'm having technical difficulties. Okay. Every Sunday, Unitarian Universalists around the country and around the world light a chalice, a symbol of hope, wisdom, and community. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
Good morning from Austin, Texas, and the community room of Wildflower UU Church. I am the Reverend Erin Walter, and it is my great joy to be with you today, even virtually. Thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to connect. Our call to worship words today come from the Reverend Manish Mishra Marzetti. He writes, "The universe sings no less because time and space wear us thin. The music calls us to recognize our limitations, to recognize that the song is best sung with others." In that spirit of singing and doing our best together with others, we gather today. And I also want to share with you the mission of Wildflower Church. It is growing spiritually together, spreading love, justice, and joy. So I come to you in that spirit to connect with the mission of your congregation and to worship and be together today. Welcome.
Please find a comfortable place to be and place your feet flat on the floor if you can, so that you might feel grounded, more connected to the earth that nourishes and sustains us all. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, and take a deep cleansing breath and gently release it as together we enter into a time of meditation followed by silence. From the east comes the sun, bringing a new and unspoiled day. It has already circled the earth and looked upon the distant lands and faraway peoples. It has passed over mountain ranges and the waters of the seven seas. It has shone upon the laborers in the fields, into the windows of homes and shops and factories. It has beheld proud cities with gleaming towers and also the hovels of the poor. It has been witness to both good and evil, the works of honest men and women, and the conspiracy of knaves. It has seen marching armies, bomb-blasted villages, and the destruction that wasteth at noonday. Now, unsullied from its timeless journey, it comes to us, messenger of the morning, harbinger of a new day. Amen, and blessed be.
You have all the time in the world for everybody else, and it kills you to save some of it for yourself. The loving heart for those who aren't around. What if you gave it to those who hold their ground? There comes a time when even you'll have to decide. Are you ready to stop living someone else's life? There's a difference between giving up and settling down. And maybe it's not your job to know right now. Would you take it if it were the easy way out? Would you know it if the words were laid stand out? You have all the time in the world for everybody else. Would it kill you to save some of it for yourself? Love your heart for those who are never around. Well, you could save it for those who hold their ground.
Giving out of what is our own is a transformative act. As a community of faith, we collect an offering not for ourselves or our congregation, but to give to others as a collective action of our community and as a way to live out our shared values. Please give with a generous heart to support the September Share the Plate recipients. This month, Justice Forward received 75% of our offering. In 2003, Emerson members worked to establish the Harris County Drug Court Foundation to help individuals with nonviolent addiction-related offenses get treatment and non-prison interventions. Over 800 Houstonians have stayed out of jail with this program, most getting clean and getting a fresh start. Last year, the Harris County Drug Court Foundation evolved to Justice Forward, expanding their mission to work with all 18 Harris County specialty courts. Their innovative program provides funds for transitional housing, counseling, employment and education assistance, lowering recidivism and increasing family reunification while delivering fiscal savings to Texas taxpayers. Learn more at www.justiceforwardhouston.org. And if you've missed today's adult religious education program, you can catch the interview with Emersonian and Drug Court Foundation founder Gabe Gelb on our YouTube later this week. And as always, 25% of our offering will go to Interfaith Ministries Meals on Wheels, feeding Houston seniors. We have 3 ways to give. You can text the number on the screen, go to our webpage for online giving, or if you prefer to mail a check, yes, we are still picking up mail at church.
Are you familiar with the concept of a barn raising? Maybe you've seen it in the movies, especially made famous in the movie Witness. Or maybe you've lived near a community, an Amish or Mennonite community that still does this. But a barn raising, or historically called a raising bee, describes a collective action of neighbors coming together to literally raise a barn. This practice of years past was a community event that was not to be missed. And according to Wikipedia, men worked, women supported and fed, and children played. Now, I'd like to envision a more genderful and gender-inclusive image of a barn raising where whatever your gender, your age, you could participate as you saw fit and as your talents and gifts called you forward. But that was the tradition of the time. It's a lost art today for the most part, again, with the exception of the Amish and the Mennonite communities. But even if we're not raising a barn, There are still many projects, Wikipedia says many farm projects, that can bring people together in a similar way. Well, there are many projects, however you live, wherever you live, that can bring people together like a barn raising. And that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. Because of this long year plus of pandemic living, pandemic isolation for many of us, the idea of bringing everyone together to do something, to build something, a big crowd, might produce a little bit of anxiety. It might be hard to even imagine. Even for those of us who are the most extroverted and community-minded, it's been a long time since we did anything even like a metaphorical barn raising. But I also think that having church during this pandemic virtually has been its own kind of barn raising. We've been learning how to build and keep something together. So I want to share with you a story of a kind of barn raising. It comes from Sheila O'Malley, a writer on Twitter. Her handle on Twitter is @SheilaKathleen. Sheila writes, "The year after my dad died was so bad, I don't remember 90% of it. I moved to a new apartment and was unable to unpack. For months, I was ashamed I couldn't unpack. How can you be unable to unpack?" she writes. She says her good friend David, that she had known since high school, knew she was struggling, and he felt helpless about it. He would say, "You are loved, we need you." And Sheila says, "I would think, doesn't matter, but thanks." So David took a risk. It could have ended badly, Sheila says. She could have lashed out. She could have been really offended. But David sent an email to a group of local friends without telling Sheila and said this: "Sheila is struggling. She needs our help. Let's all go over there and unpack her apartment for her. Bring food. Let's make it fun." I get a little choked up reading that because I can imagine any of us needing to do that for each other. And I know people in this pandemic in particular whose depression and anxiety and health, mental and physical, have stopped them from taking care of themselves in the way that they want to. And we have needed to find ways to help, even with masks and with COVID and all of this. So this ask, let's go unpack for her, bring food, let's make it fun. This did come before the pandemic, so that's not a factor here, but it's still very moving to me just to read that. And I like that, bring food, let's make it fun. Sheila writes, "At the end of the night, I looked at my friend's husband, a quiet, taciturn guy who drives a tugboat on the Hudson. Practical man of few words. I just looked at him, speechless, not knowing how to say thank you, especially to this tough guy," she says. And he looked at her, saw that look and understood what was behind it, she says. And he said, "Listen, baby, what we did today was a barn raising." It was. They swept, but music was playing. They laughed. Now Sheila has not just a home, not just that weight off her shoulders, that shame lifted, but she has great memories, tangible expressions of love to go with it. Laughter, friends, food. Baby, what we did today was a barn raising. I want you to put that story in your spiritual toolkit and remember it. Remember all the roles that were involved in making that story possible. For Sheila, even though she was ashamed to have at least somehow indicated to David how much she was struggling, and for David to take the risk, and for those friends to come over, and for that tugboat guy to not need a lot of words to say, "We love you," in his own way. At this time in our lives, in the lives of being Unitarian Universalists in community, still gathering virtually much of the time, but getting vaccines and weighing how we move in this new world, we need to ask ourselves how we can do these acts of love, these barn raisings, safely, with great care for each other. And we do this knowing that mental illness, mental health, has really suffered for many of us in the pandemic. It has been so hard to be isolated, and it has exacerbated many of the challenges that people already faced. And some of them are so hard to name. People have been trapped in their homes, suffering abuse that they couldn't talk about, unable to get away from people who were abusing them in this time, struggling with addiction, with all the elements of life that were hard before, but in new ways. And so that has taken a toll for a long time. And the hope comes from you, from communities like this who have done the work to keep showing up for each other. And now, as we get more opportunities to go out, who are we going to check on? Whose homes are we going to bring more life to safely? Whose yards are going to be, maybe people need some yard cleanup. Maybe that can be the barn raising. Here in Texas this winter, we suffered awful, awful storms and power outages and have needed to help each other with the barn raising work of cleaning up that mess, helping each other find plumbers. People are still dealing with the devastation in our yard. So get creative. It's a spiritual call. It's a practice to figure out how we can show up for each other. So I want to talk about the challenges for mental health, and that we destigmatize those as a community, because that was a piece of Sheila's story. She was really struggling in an unusually deep way that she didn't normally struggle. And grief is a piece of that too. Our churches need to be places where we talk about mental health and mental illness, where we lift shame by naming things. And so one of the things that I want to do before I tell you some more stories and we talk about resources for mental health and community care, I want to share with you some of the elements of mental illness and mental health struggles that are present for me in my life, either personally or in my immediate circle of what I would consider family. Religion has added layers of shame, of not being able to talk about things historically, especially around depression, which can lead to suicide, by saying to people that those who commit suicide are going to hell, or are committing a sin. So we as Unitarian Universalists need to look at the whole spectrum of mental health struggles and say no. Our faith tells us that you are loved no matter what. And so part of releasing that stigma is naming the things that we, as beloveds, as whole children of the holy, include in our lives. In my life, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder and complex PTSD, alcoholism, eating disorders, suicide, and personality disorders. These are conditions that are known to me through my extended family, a family that I love, that I wouldn't trade for anything. We also know joy, peace, success, birth, rebirth, laughter, love. All of these things are a part of the human experience, and to act like some of them are not there, are not real, or make you less would be spiritual malpractice and is a lie. So whatever you're carrying, I want you to know that you are not alone. But sometimes that's easier said than done, isn't it? We can say you are not alone. We can share suicide hotline numbers on Facebook, but how to help people feel it? And sometimes that's where that barn-raising piece comes in. I read a book called Lincoln's Melancholy, and I usually like to hold up books when I'm leading church, but this one's on my Kindle. And so I hold up for you one of my joy practices, which is colorful things. My Kindle has a colorful case. But in here is the book Lincoln's Melancholy, and it talks about President Abraham Lincoln's depression and how deeply it affected him. And of course, no one is perfect, and certainly no president, but we remember President Lincoln for his significant role in the movement for civil rights and ending slavery, and had depression taken fully control of his whole life, what might be different? So I want to tell you a story from this book, Lincoln's Melancholy. It is told that President Lincoln would be so deep in the struggle, in what some call the dark night of the soul, that friends would have to stay with him to make sure that he made it through the night. Have you been that friend for someone? Have you been there yourself? I love the psalm, weeping may endureth for the night, but joy cometh in the morning. Sometimes it's hard to feel that, though. And that's where your friends, your family who will just sit with you and hold your hand, or text with you, or talk to you on the phone, that's where those folks come in. A lot of it is letting people know that they're loved just the way they are. And there's nobody who did that better than Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers was a community minister like myself, and a few years ago, the movie Won't You Be My Neighbor was out, and I hope you saw it, and I think I'm due to watch it again because it was so affirming. But his show was his community ministry, just like music is my community ministry, among other things. And in the show, they talk about the video. You may remember this song where Daniel Tiger, who is a puppet sort of embodiment of Fred Rogers, and Lady Aberlin have a sort of a song conversation about how deeply sad Daniel feels. And in the documentary, we learned from Fred Rogers' wife that in retirement, he was deeply depressed, losing his expression, his work, his expression of his call and his ministry. Retiring from that show took a very hard toll on him. And so I also want to say, for those of you who might be struggling with that later in life, or in retirement, or even in the isolation of pandemic, what is my purpose? Some of you know I lost my job as a director of the YMCA early in the pandemic due to COVID cutbacks. And so that grappling with purpose can really affect our mental health as well. And so this was something that even the cheery and lovely and wonderful Fred Rogers grappled with. And so in this song that Daniel Tiger and Lady Aberlin sing, which you can find on YouTube, Daniel Tiger says, "Often I wonder if I'm a mistake. I'm not supposed to be scared, am I? Sometimes I cry and sometimes I shake, wondering, isn't it true that the strong never break? I'm not like anyone else I know. I'm not like anyone else." Well, Lady Aberlin responds, "I think you're just fine as you are. I really must tell you, I do like the person you are becoming. You are my friend. Quiet or shaking or dreaming or breaking, there's no one mistaking. You are my best friend." Here's what's important about this sweet duet, and here's where this is a barn raising. Here's where this is about how we accompany each other through hard times of the Spirit. This wonderful little duet does not solve everything. Lady Aberlin is not showing up to fix her friend. They sing and their voices weave together. Daniel Tiger continues to wonder if he's a mistake, and Lady Aberlin continues to say, "I love you and you are fine just as you are." It doesn't fix everything, but they're together. This is what we need. communities that will accompany us through the hard times, who will believe, even when we don't believe, that joy is coming in the morning. Maybe someone who will send you a favorite song. Maybe someone who will send you endless cute cat videos or gifts, whatever it is that helps you in that moment. And one of the things that the Reverend Monica Coleman suggests for those dealing with depression is looking for funny things. I want to share with you before we go a little bit of her wisdom. She has a wonderful book called Not Alone, and it offers 40 days of devotions on depression. So there's Reverend Monica Coleman and her book to accompany us in a short amount of time. Very short chapters that can be read in a couple of minutes. When you're struggling, I don't always, in fact, I almost never have the energy when I'm struggling for something heavy and long. So just these short devotionals that give you questions to ponder and journal over, questions like, who in your life can handle your truth? And what songs express how you feel? She describes depression as making her believe things that are factually untrue. She says it makes her believe that no one loves her. That's what Daniel Tiger was saying, that no one really knows her, that no one sees who she really is, and she becomes emotionally paralyzed. There is Sheila Kathleen, paralyzed about unpacking her apartment. She says she just becomes exhausted and lonely because it takes so much energy to show up in her work life or anywhere in life pretending that she isn't miserable. She gives the advice for those who struggle like her, and she knows that sometimes advice is not that helpful, but she also says it's good to have reminders. She says, practice hospitality. When you're running on empty, may someone open doors, cook a meal, pull a chair back, and share. When you have the energy to be the one to do that, do that. When you don't have the energy, at least open the door if you can. She says, practice acceptance. No one is unbreakable. You are already enough. You've already done enough. Will you say that with me? You are already enough. You've already done enough. One more time until you feel it. You are already enough. You've already done enough. I want you to feel that. In such a hard time, just surviving this pandemic, just being where we are today, you are enough. Monica Coleman says, seek laughter. What can you do to laugh more? What makes you feel alive? My husband and son have been watching silly videos of animals ramming in to things with funny narrations behind it. And I know that sounds like a little silly thing, but we have been laughing. We've also watched the TV show Nailed It, where people try to cook and it doesn't go really well. So I would love to know, what are your sort of sources of laughter and joy? Monica Coleman says, remember who you are. She writes it down on a piece of paper. She writes, I am a teacher. I am a minister. I am a friend. I am living my grandparents' dreams. And she reads it when she needs it. I don't know if you can hear a plane flying over me, but if you can, apologies for that sound. And at the same time, the sounds of the world, just being here in the Wildflower Community Room, remind me that we have a big world to serve and that we are getting closer together, and we need you in it, all right? Coleman also talks about her physical practices, and as someone who served at the YMCA, I love this. She talks about cycling, restoring her humanity. She talks about baking and biking as spiritual disciplines in the context of her depression. What are your spiritual disciplines? I got a rescue dog this year, so walking him is one of mine now. It's also Zumba. but I love to know and let your community know, what are your spiritual disciplines right now? I invite you as a community to think about how you can be barn raisers in this time. How can we show up for each other? Who needs a tugboat captain in their apartment safely to help? Who needs something funny? Who needs a meal? This is what church is for. This is what we do best. Barn raising, showing up, duets, songs sung together. I give thanks for you and your community and the things that you have done to raise each other up in the hardest of times. There's more need out there. If you're the one who needs that barn raising crew, please give us a wave. But if it's too hard to wave, to open the door, to send a tweet, to make a phone call, the rest of us, when we have the energy, may we be looking for the ones who've been quiet. May we do what David did and take a risk out of love and show up. May you feel no shame about whatever it is you're carrying, and let your community carry it with you.
Our closing hymn is 1021, Lean on Me. And we realized that in the video that the text might seem a little small to read, so we have it pasted in the chat for everyone to sing along to.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you understand. We all
Will you take a breath with me? And if you're moved and willing, put your hands out. We've learned during this time, this past year plus of pandemic living, how holding another person's hand is not to be taken for granted. And I lift that up every Sunday in my services. So if you are sitting with someone for this benediction, and if that person is willing, by invitation and always with consent, I invite you to hold hands. And if you're like me and you're the only one in the room, I invite you to imagine whose hand you're going to be holding when we can joyfully be together again. Spirit of life and love, great mystery of all knowing and many names, we give thanks for this day, for making it this far together. May we be someone's barn raiser. May we notice those who have gone silent. And if we are the silent ones, may we find it in ourselves to give a signal. Surround those who are suffering in love, and may they feel their power for what is to come, and heal those of us who are sick. And as always, may we know ourselves as part of the great spirit of life, love, and oneness of the world. Amen. Blessed be, and thank you for this time together.
So it is almost time for coffee hour. We've got a few little announcements that we're going to be sharing. And then if you like, we'll have some conversation. As always, the recordings of our services are up on YouTube. You can check those, the new ones out on Tuesday, but if you go to Emerson's YouTube channel, you can find a whole bunch there. Next week, Reverend Michelle is back in the pulpit. And now we have a special board announcement from Marilyn Rambo.
Good morning. I'm Marilyn Rambo, a member of the Emerson Board of Trustees. We are looking forward, hopefully, to coming back to church, maybe in October. Part of the opening includes something new, setting up our sanctuary so we can continue streaming the live services for those who need to or want to do church from home. This means that we'll continue to have our services recorded to share with our larger group. That's where you come in. These added features mean that we need to expand our audiovisual team. You can be a key player in helping us move Emerson forward, bring our services to all of our people in Houston and beyond. If you would like to be a part of this, please let us know. We will provide training for you and a couple of dress rehearsals with staff and volunteer-only worship services. If you're interested, please reach out to Dory Wolf or Katie Cartman, and we'll get you connected to learn more.
Thank you, Marilyn. And now, Julia.
For our postlude today, we wanted to share the lovely clip from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood that Reverend Erin mentioned in her sermon. Enjoy.
What, Daniel?
I've been wondering about something myself.
Something about Mr. Skunk?
Something about mistakes.
What is it?
I've been wondering if I was a mistake.
If you were a mistake? What do you mean, Daniel?
Well, for one thing, I've never seen a tiger that looks like me.
No.
And I've never heard a tiger that talks like me.
No.
And I don't know any other tiger who lives in a clock.
No, neither do I.
Or loves people.
Oh, Daniel.
Sometimes I wonder if I'm too tame. Sometimes I wonder if I'm a mistake. I'm not like anyone else I know. When I'm asleep or even awake, sometimes I get to dream